So, one of the men convicted in the murder of Julio Foolio was up on the stand, breaking down in tears, talking about how remorseful he is, how sorry he feels. Let's be straight about what's actually happening here. That's not genuine regret. That's a man staring down the possibility of a death sentence and doing everything he can to avoid it, because that's exactly where this case is heading. I don't know his precise role in everything that went down. There are multiple people looking at life sentences connected to this situation. The woman involved is likely to receive the most lenient outcome since she was the first to cooperate. But this guy, he's cooked. And that's the part that gets me every time. These men walk around acting like street loyalty and toughness are principles worth dying for, or in this case, killing for. Then the moment they're sitting in a courtroom facing the consequences, the tough exterior completely collapses. You weren't defending yourself. Nobody came after you. You went looking for him. You hunted Julio Foolio down. He wasn't living a saintly life, but that's not the point. You made a deliberate choice to end someone's life, and now you want sympathy? People don't feel remorse when they're comfortable. They feel remorse when they're the ones about to be punished. Now, and I know this is a sharp pivot, but the same psychology actually connects to what's going on with Rick Ross and Drake. Stick with me here. Rick Ross is out here on Apple Music platforms, basically doing the equivalent of that courtroom speech, telling Drake he never wanted to see him fail, that he could have worked with anyone but chose him, that he was doing Drake a favor. Meanwhile, if you actually look at Ross's catalog, say he has around 30 notable records, a significant portion of those feature Drake in some capacity. You have to ask yourself honestly, who benefited more from that partnership? They made great music together, no question, and at one point, Miami's hip-hop scene was genuinely unified. Khaled, Ross, Drake, it felt like a real collective. That started fracturing around the time Rick Ross stepped back from Pool Boy, and there was internal shakeup within that circle. Florida will always have its regional loyalty, but the tight-knit energy that once made Miami one of the most unified rap cities, where artists actually built each other up, slowly gave way to the same thing that always destroys those moments: ego. So Ross jumped on the anti-Drake wave 2 years ago for momentum, dropped a diss, got his headlines, and now he wants back in. Classic. And here's the pattern nobody talks about enough. Every time Rick Ross has beef with someone, he frames it as if he's fighting for somebody else. He positions himself as a protector, a martyr. When he went at 50 Cent, his justification was that 50 had been targeting Southern artists and someone needed to stand up. That conflict gave Ross a massive career boost in 2009, brought him back into the conversation, and he followed it up with BMF, one of his biggest records. After that, he signed Meek Mill and Whale, linked up with Drake, and built his empire from there. The timing was not a coincidence. Then came the Birdman-Wayne situation where he inserted himself into Wayne's dispute and declared he was fighting for Khaled and Wayne. Then Khaled and Wayne both squashed things with Birdman independently, leaving Ross having taken that energy for nothing. And the Drake falling out? His stated reason was that Drake wouldn't clear a record for French Montana. The reason it didn't get cleared? Ross was on the record. Figure that one out. Rick Ross is extraordinarily talented. He's also extraordinarily self-serving. And the same goes for Khaled. There are artists who have been signed to Maybach Music for 4 years now who have gotten zero real push. Talented people just sitting there collecting dust. That tells you everything about the operation. Shifting over to Kodak Black, he shaved his head, and honestly, the man is going through it. The arrests keep coming, and I'm not going to sit here and clown him for it. If anything, watching Kodak reminds me of DMX in a way that's hard to ignore. Unbelievable talent, completely authentic, makes hits effortlessly, and just cannot escape whatever is chasing him internally. His lawyer clearly genuinely cares about him, almost like a father figure at this point. And I hope that support helps. Because whatever Kodak is battling isn't just circumstance, it's something deeper. We all have something, a weakness, a pattern, a thing we return to even when we know it's destroying us. Call it what you will. For some people, it becomes their undoing if they don't get ahead of it. I hope Kodak gets the help he needs before it's too late. Pitchfork gave Chris Brown's new album a 1.3 out of 10.
And look, that score might be extreme, but the album genuinely underwhelmed. 27 tracks, and it's hard to find a handful that feel like peak Chris Brown. It came across as unfocused and rushed. But if history tells us anything, this kind of critical rejection tends to light a fire under him, use it as fuel, and come back sharper. Over in Atlanta, near the Krog Street Tunnel area on the east side, someone broke into a vehicle belonging to Beyoncé's team and stole a collection of hard drives. That neighborhood has been significantly redeveloped over the years, now home to a food hall and upscale apartments, so it's not the same sketchy block it used to be. Regardless, it sounds like the crew was parked there grabbing food when the break-in happened. The suspect initially planned to fight the charges in court, but after being offered a better plea arrangement, he accepted it and received a 2-year sentence. Then there's Stefan Diggs's former personal chef, who simply will not let things go. She's continuing to push allegations that Diggs abused one of his children's mothers. People assumed it was Cardi B, but Diggs apparently had 2 other women with children at the same time, so it could have been anyone. She took this to court and lost. At some point, this stops being advocacy and starts looking like obsession. She needs to move on. And then there's Daz Dillinger, who's speaking out about unpaid royalties from the Tupac estate. And honestly, this is one of those situations where if you don't fight for what you're owed, it simply disappears. He's claiming he hasn't been properly compensated for his contributions to several major records. Tracks like 2 of America's Most Wanted featuring Snoop Dogg, I Ain't Mad at Ya, and a number of others that became cornerstones of that era. These weren't minor contributions. He was in the room. He was part of making that music what it was. And that matters, because greatness rarely comes from one person alone. It takes multiple talented people coming together to create something that lasts generations. The estate will almost certainly push back and make him prove every cent. That's just how these things go. But I genuinely hope he has the documentation to back his claims and walks away with what he's rightfully owed. His place in that chapter of hip-hop history is real, and he deserves to be compensated like it.